The first time I heard that child cry, something inside me broke. I shouldn't have cared. I'd spent 15 years building walls around my heart, constructing an empire that made me untouchable. Yet there I stood, frozen in the doorway of my penthouse office, watching as Maria's baby screamed in terror when my assistant tried to calm him. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Stark," Maria whispered, her dark hands trembling as she reached for her son. "I wouldn't have brought him if my sitter hadn't cancelled at the last minute." "I can leave?" "No," I said, surprising myself. "It's fine." It wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. I had a board meeting in 20 minutes that would determine the future of Stark Industries. I didn't have time for a cleaning lady's crisis. The baby's wails grew more desperate. His tiny brown fingers clutched at his mother's uniform as my assistant backed away, defeated. Something about his cries felt familiar. Raw. Primal. The sound of someone who felt utterly alone in a world too big, too cold. I knew that feeling. "May I?" The words left my mouth before my brain could stop them. Maria's eyes widened with surprise, and was that fear? She hesitated, then carefully extended her arms, her precious boy still sobbing against her chest. What happened next defied explanation. As I took him in my arms, the crying stopped instantly. His tear-streaked face turned up to mine, those deep brown eyes studying me with an intensity no 11-month-old should possess. Then, he did something that would change everything. He smiled. And reached for my face. "That's impossible," Maria whispered. "He doesn't go to anyone. Not even my mother. The doctors said it might be severe attachment anxiety, but..." The boy's tiny hand patted my cheek, and I felt something crack inside my chest. A feeling I'd buried the day I signed my first billion-dollar contract. "What's his name?" I asked, my voice unnaturally rough. "Isaiah," she said. "Isaiah. The prophet who spoke of comfort for the broken. How fitting." My phone buzzed, the board was waiting. I should have handed the child back, walked into that meeting, and forgotten this moment. That was the logical choice. The business choice. Instead, I found myself asking, has he always been this way with strangers? Maria's eyes darkened. Ever since his father? She stopped, swallowing hard. Yes. Always. That's when I saw it, the faint scar near Isaiah's temple. Almost invisible against his brown skin, but unmistakable to someone who knew what to look for. I'd seen that same mark in classified medical files my company had acquired last month. Files I wasn't supposed to have. Files that had kept me awake for weeks. My heart pounded as Isaiah nestled against my chest, completely at peace. Why me? What connected us? And how was it possible that this child, this innocent baby, bore the signature mark of Project Nightingale? If I was right, people would kill to get their hands on this child. And Maria had no idea what danger they were in. "Cancel my meeting," I told my assistant without taking my eyes off Isaiah. "All of them." "But sir, the board." "Tell them something came up. Something more important." For the first time in 15 years, I meant it. Hello to all my amazing viewers. Thank you for joining me for another incredible story that I just had to share with you. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? This story is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me, the connection between this powerful billionaire and this special child goes deeper than you could possibly imagine. The weight of Isaiah in my arms felt foreign yet strangely familiar. It had been years since I'd held a child, not since my goddaughter Eliza was born, before her parents decided I was too intense to be around her. Their words, not mine. Hard to argue when Forbes had labeled me the most ruthless man in business 3 years running. I gestured for Maria to follow me into my private office, away from my assistant's curious eyes. The panoramic windows revealed Manhattan sprawled beneath us like a circuit board of light and shadow. My empire. My prison. How long have you worked for my company, Maria? I asked, gently bouncing Isaiah, who remained eerily content in my arms. 6 months, Mr. Stark. Her voice was soft but steady. Not the voice of someone intimidated by wealth. I respected that. And before that? Her eyes flickered with suspicion. I worked at Memorial Hospital. In the janitorial department. Memorial Hospital. The final piece clicked into place. My chest tightened. You worked the night shift on the research floor, I said. Not a question. Maria's posture changed instantly. Her shoulders squared, her chin lifted, and her eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes, narrowed. The defensive stance of a mother bear. Who are you really, Mr. Stark? She whispered. And why does my son trust you when he fears everyone else? I walked to my desk and shifted Isaiah to one arm so I could press the button that engaged the room's privacy protocols. The windows darkened, the ambient noise disappeared, and the security system confirmed we were completely isolated. 10 months ago, my company acquired a medical research division that was conducting controversial studies, I began. Project Nightingale was buried in encrypted files. A program testing genetic modifications on infants with certain markers. Infants whose parents had been told they were receiving routine vaccines. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. No. That's not possible. The subjects were all identified by a small subdermal implant. I gently touched the nearly invisible scar on Isaiah's temple. Like this one. She sank into a chair, her uniform suddenly seeming too large for her frame. They said it was a birthmark, she whispered. The doctors told me. They lied. My voice was harder than I intended. Isaiah stirred in my arms, his small hand clutching my silk tie. I softened my tone. When I discovered what was happening, I shut it down. Quietly. Legally, there was nothing I could do without exposing the children to public scrutiny, but I made sure the program ended. What I didn't tell her was how personal it was for me. How my own father had conducted similar experiments decades ago. How I'd spent my life trying to atone for the stark legacy of brilliant minds without moral compasses. There were 12 infants in the program, I continued. I've been trying to locate them, to monitor their health, but the records were incomplete. And Isaiah is one of them, Maria said, her voice hollow. That's why he's different. Why he doesn't trust people. Perhaps. I studied the child's peaceful face. But it doesn't explain why he trusts me. A knock at the door made us both tense. Isaiah stirred but didn't cry. Mr. Stark. My chief of security, James Rhodes, entered without waiting for a response. He'd been my friend long before I employed him, the only person who knew the full truth about my father's research. His eyes widened at the sight of the baby in my arms, then narrowed when he noticed Maria. The board is demanding answers, he said carefully. And Johnson from the DOD is in the lobby. Says it's about Project Erebus. I felt the blood drain from my face. Project Erebus was the military's code name for their surveillance of Nightingale subjects. If they were here, they knew about Isaiah. How did they find him? I whispered. Rhodes's expression confirmed my fears. We have a leak. Maria stood abruptly. I need to take my son and leave. You can't, I said, the words like ash in my mouth. The moment you walk out that door, they'll take him from you. They've been monitoring all the children. If Isaiah showed any unusual abilities, they'd have flagged him immediately. Abilities? Maria's voice cracked. He's just a baby. But even as she said it, I could see the doubt in her eyes. The question she'd been too afraid to ask herself. Why doesn't he cry in my arms, Maria? I asked gently. Why does he trust me when he fears everyone else? Her eyes filled with tears. Because he's like you, isn't he? Whatever they did to him, it connects him to you somehow. Rhodes cleared his throat. We need to move. Now. Take the private elevator to the garage. I'll have a car waiting. I looked down at Isaiah, who gazed back with those impossibly knowing eyes. In that moment, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life forever. I'm going with them. Rhodes blinked in surprise. You can't just disappear. You're a billionaire with resources, I finished for him. And the only person who might understand what they did to this child. I turned to Maria, whose face was a battlefield of fear and hope. If you'll let me, I want to help you protect him. She studied my face for a long moment, then looked at her son, content in my arms in a way he'd never been with anyone else. Why? She asked simply. Why risk everything for us? The answer rose from a place I'd locked away years ago. Because 35 years ago, I was him. And no one protected me. Isaiah reached up and touched my face again, his tiny fingers tracing the outline of my jaw. And somehow, I knew he understood every word. We need to go, Rhodes urged, his hand on his concealed weapon. They're in the elevator. As I hurried Maria toward the private exit, Isaiah still cradled against my chest, I couldn't shake the feeling that this child had found me for a reason. That perhaps, in saving him, I might finally save myself. If you're enjoying this journey so far, please hit that subscribe button. The connection between little Isaiah and our mysterious billionaire is about to take them on a dangerous path that will reveal secrets neither was prepared to face. Where do you think this connection came from? Share your theories in the comments below. The private elevator descended with excruciating slowness. Isaiah's tiny fingers clutched my shirt collar while Maria stood rigid beside me, her breathing shallow. Neither of us spoke. What could we say? Her world had just imploded, and mine was about to follow. When we reached the garage, I whispered, "Move quickly but don't run. Running attracts attention." She nodded once, her eyes never leaving her son. The elevator chimed softly as we reached the basement. Rhodes had texted that an unmarked SUV would be waiting at exit B with a driver he trusted. 3 turns to the left, past the executive parking section. Stay close, I instructed Maria, shifting Isaiah to my shoulder where he remained eerily calm. We stepped out into the cold concrete expanse of the garage. The echo of our footsteps seemed deafening in the silence. 1 turn. 2. As we rounded the 3rd corner, my blood froze. 2 black sedans blocked our path. Men in tactical gear stood beside them. "Mr. Stark," called a familiar voice. "I believe you have something that belongs to us." General William Hayes stepped forward, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. My father's old military liaison. The man who'd secured funding for experiments that should have remained theoretical. "Hayes," I acknowledged, instinctively turning to shield Isaiah with my body. "Nothing here belongs to you." He smiled without warmth. Project Nightingale was funded by the Department of Defense. All subjects remain under our jurisdiction. Subjects. Maria's voice cracked. My son is a human being. Hayes ignored her completely. The boy has demonstrated unprecedented neurological development. His brain activity suggests capabilities we've only theorized about. He took a step closer. And his response to you, specifically, confirms what we suspected about genetic compatibility. My mouth went dry. What are you talking about? Your father's research wasn't completed, but you were part of the first generation of trials. Hayes' eyes gleamed with something like reverence. Subject 0. The original template for all subsequent modifications. The world tilted sideways. You're lying, I managed, but deep down, I knew. The mysterious illnesses in my childhood. The vitamins my father insisted I take. The cognitive tests disguised as games. Your DNA was used to create the formula injected into these children, Hayes continued. They're essentially part of you. Family, you might say. That's why the boy responds to you. He recognizes what you share. Maria gasped beside me. You used his DNA on my baby? Without consent. Your consent was given when you signed the vaccination forms at Memorial Hospital, Hayes replied dismissively. Then his eyes locked on mine. But I'm more interested in what's happening to you right now, Stark. Your neurological patterns must be synchronizing with the child's. Our monitoring equipment detected the spike the moment you made contact. My head pounded as I processed his words. The strange connection I'd felt with Isaiah wasn't imagined. It was biological. Chemical. Engineered. I'm taking the boy, Hayes stated flatly. His potential is too valuable to leave in civilian hands. You're welcome to join us, Stark. Your father would have wanted you to continue his work. At the mention of my father, something snapped inside me. My father was a monster, I growled, and you helped him become one. Hayes sighed. This doesn't need to be difficult. The child's development depends on proper monitoring. Without it, the neurological stimulation could overwhelm his system. He needs specialized care that only we can provide. You mean you want to turn him into a lab rat? I countered, feeling Isaiah's tiny heart beating against my chest. Like you did to me. One of Hayes' men moved forward, hand reaching for his weapon. In that instant, the garage erupted in sound and motion. The concrete support column beside us exploded in a shower of dust. Rhodes had arrived with a tactical team of his own, using the distraction to cover our escape. This way, a woman's voice called from behind a nearby pillar. Through the chaos, I glimpsed a face I hadn't seen in 5 years. Dr. Natalie Romanoff, the brilliant neurologist who'd helped me understand my own unique brain chemistry before disappearing from the scientific community entirely. Natalie! I gasped as she grabbed Maria's arm and pulled us toward a service corridor. Not now, she snapped, punching a code into a maintenance door. Move! We sprinted through the narrow passage, emerging into an adjacent building's parking structure. A nondescript van waited with its engine running. Get in, Natalie ordered, sliding open the door. Maria hesitated, looking at me with terrified eyes. Can we trust her? Before I could answer, Isaiah let out a soft coo and reached toward Natalie, not with fear, but with the same strange recognition he'd shown me. She's like us, I realized aloud. Another subject. Natalie's green eyes flashed. Subject 7, she confirmed grimly. Now get in before they track your implant. My what? I demanded, even as I helped Maria into the van. The chip in your neck, Natalie said, her fingers brushing the base of my skull where a small scar, a scar I'd always believed was from a childhood fall, marked my skin. How do you think they found the boy so quickly? They've been monitoring you both. Gunfire erupted behind us. I clutched Isaiah tighter and dove into the vehicle. Where are we going? Maria asked, her voice surprisingly steady for a woman whose entire reality had just shattered. Natalie gunned the engine, sending us screeching up the ramp toward daylight. Somewhere they can't follow. A place your father built off the grid, she added, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. A place to hide his greatest achievements, or his greatest mistakes. Depends on your perspective. You knew my father. I asked, the implications making my head spin. No, she replied, her eyes locked on the road as we merged into New York traffic. But I know your mother. The world dropped away beneath me. My mother is dead. Natalie's hands tightened on the wheel. That's what Howard wanted everyone to believe when she discovered what he was doing to you. What they were doing to all of us. Isaiah squirmed in my arms, his small face turning up to mine. In his eyes, I saw something impossible, understanding. As if he knew exactly what was happening. What we were. They'll never stop hunting us, I said, the reality of my new existence settling like a stone in my chest. Everything I built, my entire life, is over, Natalie finished for me. Welcome to the reality the rest of us have been living. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice to keep that child safe? I looked at Isaiah, then at Maria, whose quiet strength reminded me of the mother I barely remembered. The choice was already made the moment I felt this child in my arms. Everything, I said. And I meant it. As the city blurred around us, I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest, a fierce protectiveness I'd never experienced. Whatever connected us, this child, this woman driving our escape, and myself, it was more than genetics. More than science. It was destiny. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I needed to be. Wow, can you believe that twist? If you're as shocked as I am about the connection between little Isaiah and our protagonist, hit that subscribe button right now. I'd love to know your thoughts on what might happen next. Will they find safety? What secrets does Natalie know? And who is this mysterious mother everyone thought was dead? Share your theories in the comments below. This journey is just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The safe house wasn't what I expected. No underground bunker or military-style compound. Just a modest lakeside cabin in the Adirondacks, surrounded by dense forest and accessible only by a dirt road that seemed to vanish into wilderness. My mother is alive, I said for the third time as Natalie secured the perimeter. The words felt foreign on my tongue. And she built this place. After she escaped your father, Natalie confirmed, checking the windows. Maria, there's a bedroom in the back where Isaiah can rest. Maria hesitated, her eyes darting between me and her son, still contentedly nestled against my shoulder. He won't sleep for anyone but me. And lately, even that's been difficult. I gently transferred Isaiah to her arms, surprised by the emptiness I felt once he was gone. Try. We all need to rest while we can. As Maria disappeared down the hallway, Natalie pulled a metal briefcase from under a floorboard. Her movements were precise, clinical, the actions of someone accustomed to living in shadows. You said you were Subject 7, I began, watching her remove vials and medical equipment. How many of us are there? In the original program? 12. In your father's initial trials? 23. She glanced up, her green eyes sharp. Only 8 of us survived to adulthood. My stomach twisted. And the children like Isaiah? 12. All born to mothers who worked at facilities connected to Project Nightingale. She prepared a syringe with practiced efficiency. Your father was brilliant but impatient. When his adult subjects kept dying, he developed a theory that introducing the genetic modifications in infancy would allow the neurological pathways to develop naturally. What exactly were these modifications supposed to do? I asked, dreading the answer. Natalie's smile was bitter. Create the perfect human, of course. Enhanced intelligence, empathic capability, neurological synchronization. She tapped her temple. The ability to connect mind to mind. To share consciousness. I remembered the strange feeling when Isaiah first touched me, the sense that something had awakened inside my mind. Telepathy? That's impossible. Says the man whose company creates technology that would have been considered magic 20 years ago. She approached with the syringe. I need to deactivate your tracking implant. It'll hurt. I unbuttoned my collar, exposing my neck. Why didn't they deactivate yours? They think they did. I modified it. Her fingers were cool against my skin as she found the tiny bump at the base of my skull. Your mother taught me how. The needle pierced my flesh, burning like acid. I gritted my teeth against the pain. My mother was a neurobiologist, I said, piecing together fragments of memory. She disappeared when I was 7. My father said she died in a car accident. Howard had her committed when she threatened to expose what he was doing to you. Natalie withdrew the needle, her face softening slightly. She escaped 6 months later and has been working underground ever since, trying to protect the subjects, all of us. She created a network. A network of telepaths. I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Of survivors, Natalie corrected. People your father and Hayes broke and discarded. People like me. For the first time, I noticed the faint scar at her temple, identical to Isaiah's. You were both a first-generation subject and had a child in the program. Her hand stilled. My daughter was taken at birth. I was told she died. The pain in her voice was raw, immediate. I only discovered the truth when your mother found me 3 years ago. Have you found her? Your daughter? No. The word hung between us, heavy with grief. But I've helped locate 4 of the Nightingale children. Isaiah is the 5th. A soft cry from the back bedroom interrupted us. Within seconds, the cry escalated to a wail of distress. I was on my feet instantly, moving toward the sound before I could question the impulse. Maria sat on the edge of a small bed, Isaiah thrashing in her arms, his face contorted with fear. He won't settle, she said, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. It's been getting worse. The doctors called it night terrors, but... Without asking, I sat beside her and reached for Isaiah. The moment he was in my arms, his cry subsided to hiccuping sobs, his tiny fingers clutching at my shirt. This isn't normal, Maria whispered, watching us with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. The way he responds to you. It's the neural connection, Natalie said from the doorway. Isaiah's brain is still developing. The modifications make him hypersensitive to neural patterns that match his own. He's seeking equilibrium. With me, I said quietly, feeling the weight of it. Because they used my DNA. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Will he ever be normal? Will he ever be able to live without you near him? The question pierced me unexpectedly. I'd spent 15 years building walls around myself, convinced I was better off alone. Now, looking at this child who somehow shared a part of me, I realized how empty that existence had been. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm not going anywhere. Maria studied my face. Why? You could have walked away. Gone back to your empire, your billions. Instead, you're here, a fugitive, holding my son. I couldn't explain the pull I felt toward Isaiah, or toward her. How in the space of hours, they had become more important to me than the company I'd spent my life building. Because for the first time, something matters more than money or power. Our eyes locked, and I saw something shift in hers, a cautious warmth that made my heart beat faster. The moment shattered as Natalie's phone chimed. Her face went pale as she read the message. They found the van, she said. And they've activated the nationwide facial recognition system. We have maybe 12 hours before they track us here. How? I demanded. You said you deactivated my implant. I did. But they don't need it anymore. She turned the phone to show me a news alert. My face filled the screen, alongside a staggering headline, Billionaire CEO kidnaps infant in psychotic break. They're saying you had a mental breakdown, Natalie explained grimly. That you abducted Maria's child during a delusional episode. They've painted you as unstable, dangerous. Maria gasped. That's absurd. I was with him willingly. It doesn't matter, I said, the reality of our situation sinking in. They've turned the entire country against us. Every police officer, every civilian with a smartphone is now looking for me, for us. Isaiah stirred in my arms, his small hand reaching up to touch my face. The moment his fingers made contact with my skin, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between us. But this time, instead of a vague feeling of connection, I saw something. A memory that wasn't mine. A sterile room. Masked figures. Pain. I jerked back, gasping. He showed me. I saw. What? Maria asked, alarmed. His memories, I whispered, looking down at Isaiah in astonishment. From the hospital. The procedures they performed on him. Natalie moved closer, her expression intense. The neural pathways are strengthening. This is happening faster than I anticipated. Is that normal? Maria asked, her voice small. None of this is normal, Natalie replied. But it confirms what your mother suspected, she added, looking at me. The second generation, children like Isaiah, are achieving neural synchronization at an accelerated rate. He's not just recognizing your neural pattern, he's actively connecting with it. Can he do that with everyone in the program? I asked. Natalie hesitated. Theoretically, yes. Which is exactly why Hayes wants him. Imagine military applications, soldiers sharing tactical information instantaneously, operating as a single unit with a hive mind. The implications made me ill. We need to move. Now. Before they close in. There's one place they won't look, Natalie said after a moment of consideration. But it's risky. If we're caught en route. More risky than staying here to be found. Maria interrupted, a new fierceness in her voice as she stood and gathered Isaiah's few belongings. I've spent my life playing it safe, and look where that got us. I'm done hiding. I looked at her with newfound admiration. In the space of hours, this woman had discovered her child was part of an illegal experiment, abandoned her life, and gone on the run with virtual strangers. Yet here she stood, chin raised, eyes blazing with determination. Where are we going? I asked Natalie. To meet your mother, she replied simply. And the others like us. It's time you joined the resistance you've been unwittingly funding. What are you talking about? I haven't funded any, I stopped, the realization dawning. The Stark Foundation's neurological research grants. Natalie nodded. Your mother has been redirecting portions of your charitable funds for years. She knew eventually Hayes would make a move to reclaim the subjects. She's been preparing. I should have been angry, learning that my own charitable foundation had been infiltrated. Instead, I felt a strange pride. My mother, the woman I'd mourned for 28 years, had been fighting all along. And using my resources to do it. How do we get there? Maria asked, practical as ever. Not by road, Natalie replied. They'll be watching everything. We go on foot, through the forest to the lake. There's a boat hidden there. Isaiah yawned against my chest, his eyelids growing heavy despite the tension surrounding him. I looked down at his peaceful face and made a silent promise. I will protect you. Whatever it takes. As if he heard my thoughts, his tiny hand curled around my finger, and I felt that strange connection again. But this time, what flowed between us wasn't memory. It was trust. The forest closed around us like a living entity, branches reaching for us through the pre-dawn darkness. Isaiah slept against my chest in a carrier Natalie had fashioned, his warmth the only comfort in the bitter cold. Maria walked beside me, her face set with determination despite the exhaustion evident in every step. Almost there, Natalie murmured, guiding us through the dense underbrush. The boat is hidden in that cove. The lake appeared through the trees, its surface black glass reflecting the fading stars. We'd been traveling for hours, evading the drone surveillance Natalie warned would be sweeping the area. As we reached the water's edge, Maria suddenly stumbled. I caught her arm, steadying her. I'm fine, she insisted, though her face was pale in the dim light. Just tired. You're more than tired, I said softly, noticing the sheen of sweat on her forehead despite the cold. You're ill. She shook her head. We don't have time for this. There, Natalie pointed to a small inlet where a sleek boat was concealed beneath camouflage netting. Get it ready while I check for surveillance. As Natalie disappeared back into the trees, I helped Maria sit on a fallen log, my concern growing. How long have you been feeling sick? Since Isaiah was born, she admitted, her voice barely audible over the gentle lapping of water against the shore. The doctor said it was postpartum depression, but the medications never helped. Some days are better than others. I gently touched her forehead. You're burning up. It doesn't matter. Isaiah is what matters. Her dark eyes met mine, fierce despite her weakness. Promise me you'll protect him, no matter what happens. I'll protect both of you, I insisted, something tightening in my chest. When had this woman's welfare become so important to me? Promise me, she repeated, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. Before I could respond, Natalie returned, her expression grim. We need to move now. They deployed thermal scanning drones over the forest. I helped Maria to her feet and toward the boat. As Natalie uncovered the vessel, I saw it wasn't the simple rowboat I'd expected, but a sleek, military-grade craft with an electric motor. Your mother's design, Natalie explained, noticing my surprise. Silent running. No heat signature. We boarded quickly, Isaiah still asleep against me as I helped Maria into the cabin. Natalie took the controls, guiding us away from shore with practiced ease. As we glided across the dark water, I watched Maria struggling to keep her eyes open. How far? I asked Natalie. The compound is on an island in the center of the lake, she replied. Technically, it's Canadian waters. Outside U.S. jurisdiction. Smart, I murmured. My mother had always been the brilliant one in the family, though my father took credit for her work more often than not. What else had she accomplished in the decades everyone believed her dead? The island materialized from the darkness, larger than I expected, with dense forest covering most of its mass. A small dock appeared, illuminated by dim solar lights. As we approached, I saw a figure waiting, silhouetted against the trees. Is that, my voice faltered. Natalie nodded. Elizabeth Stark. Your mother. The boat slid silently alongside the dock. The woman stepped forward, and for the first time in 28 years, I looked into my mother's face. She was older, of course, silver threading through her dark hair, lines carved around her eyes and mouth, but unmistakably the woman from my earliest memories. Anthony, she said, her voice exactly as I remembered it. Warm, precise, with that slight accent I could never quite place. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. The child in me wanted to run to her, while the man I'd become wanted answers for her abandonment. Isaiah chose that moment to wake, his small head lifting from my chest. His eyes found my mother immediately, and he made a soft sound of recognition that sent chills down my spine. He knows you, I said, finding my voice at last. Not me, she replied, her eyes sad. What's in me? What's in all of us? She extended her hand. Please, come. Your friend needs medical attention. I glanced at Maria, who had finally succumbed to exhaustion, her head resting against my shoulder. My mother was right, Maria's condition was worsening by the minute. The compound was hidden beneath the forest canopy, a collection of modernist structures built into the landscape, nearly invisible from above. We were led to a medical facility that would have rivaled any hospital in Manhattan. Put her here, my mother directed, indicating a bed equipped with monitoring equipment I didn't recognize. Natalie, prepare a blood panel and neural scan. I gently laid Maria down, alarmed by the heat radiating from her skin. What's happening to her? My mother's eyes met mine over Maria's unconscious form. The same thing that happened to the mothers of the other children. The same thing that killed your father's subjects. She took Isaiah from me, cradling him with practiced ease. To my surprise, he remained calm in her arms. Anthony, there are things you need to understand before we proceed. Proceed with what? I demanded. What's wrong with her? She's rejecting the neural protein transfer, Natalie interjected, already drawing blood from Maria's arm. It happens to all the mothers eventually. What transfer? What are you talking about? My mother handed Isaiah to a nurse I hadn't noticed before, a young woman with the same scar at her temple that marked Isaiah and Natalie. Another subject. When the mothers carried these children, their systems were flooded with the synthetic proteins that facilitate neural connection, my mother explained. Some of their cells absorbed and replicated these proteins, creating a partial bond with their children. It's why Maria could comfort Isaiah when others couldn't, she has a fraction of the connection you share with him. But her body is rejecting these proteins, I said, understanding dawning. That's why she's sick. Yes. And without treatment, the rejection will progress to complete organ failure. My mother's clinical tone couldn't mask the compassion in her eyes. It's already happening. Her liver functions are compromised. Cold fear washed over me. Can you help her? Yes, she said after a pause that lasted too long. But the treatment complicates things. Before she could elaborate, the door opened, and a man entered, tall, with silver hair and a face that struck me as oddly familiar. "Elizabeth," he said, "security reports military movement on the mainland. They've located the safe house." "Thank you, Joseph," my mother replied. Then, noticing my confusion, she added, "Anthony, this is Joseph Rogers." Subject 1. The man extended his hand. "Your father's first success." And his greatest regret. His grip was firm, his eyes assessing me with uncomfortable intensity. "You look like him." "I'm nothing like Howard Stark," I said, more sharply than intended. Joseph's smile was grim. "We're all like him in ways we'd rather not admit." He turned to my mother. "The council is assembled. They're waiting." She nodded. "Natalie, begin Maria's treatment. I need to show Anthony what we've built here." "I'm not leaving her," I protested. "The treatment will take hours," my mother said gently. "And there are things you need to see. Things you need to understand before you make your next decision." "What decision?" Her eyes held mine. "Whether to become who you were always meant to be, or to remain who your father forced you to become." The cryptic answer frustrated me, but the authority in her voice, so familiar from my childhood, compelled me to follow as she led me through a series of corridors into what appeared to be an operations center. Screens covered one wall, showing various locations around the world. A dozen people worked at stations, all bearing the same telltale scar. "Welcome to the Nexus," my mother said. "The central hub of what your father dismissively called the hive mind." I stared at the activity around me. "You coordinating, what exactly?" "The liberation and protection of every subject in your father's program." She gestured to the screens. "We have operatives in 17 countries. All connected. All working as one when necessary." "Connected how?" Instead of answering, she led me to a circular room where 8 people sat at a round table. They looked up as we entered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. "My son," my mother announced. Subject 0. A woman with striking blue eyes scoffed. "He hasn't earned that title. He's just Howard Stark's heir, the man who's profited from our suffering." "Peace, Diana," my mother cautioned. "He doesn't know yet." "Know what?" I demanded. Joseph took a seat at the table. "That you're the key to everything. The original template. The only subject whose neural structure fully accepted the modifications without degradation. That's why your father used your DNA for the second generation," my mother added. "You were his one unequivocal success." The revelation should have shocked me, but after everything I'd learned in the past 24 hours, it felt like merely another piece of a puzzle I was struggling to assemble. If I was such a success, why didn't he continue his experiments on me? Why move to other subjects? A heavy silence fell over the room. My mother's face grew solemn. "Because I took you away from him. I sabotaged his lab, destroyed his research, and fled with you. I changed your neural inhibitor medication to suppress the connection abilities. I wanted you to have a normal life. But Howard found us," Joseph continued. "He took you back and committed Elizabeth to a psychiatric facility. Convinced everyone she had died. He resumed his work with new subjects, but none of us achieved your level of integration. You were meant to lead us," Diana said, her hostility fading slightly. "To be the central node in a network of minds working in perfect harmony. Instead, you became—" She gestured vaguely. "A businessman." I felt like I'd stepped into someone else's life, someone else's destiny. "I don't understand what you want from me." My mother approached, her eyes soft with an emotion I'd forgotten: love. "We want you to join us. Fully. To remove the neural inhibitors that have suppressed your abilities since childhood. To help us protect the children, all of them, from becoming weapons in Hayes' arsenal." "And Maria?" I asked. "How does her treatment factor into this?" Again, that troubling pause. The only way to halt the protein rejection is to complete the neural integration. To make her like us. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You want to experiment on her? Turn her into a subject. We want to save her life, Joseph corrected. The procedure has risks, yes. But without it, she will die within days. I thought of Maria's fierce protectiveness, her quiet strength. The way she'd looked at me when I promised to protect Isaiah. Does she have a choice? Everyone has a choice, my mother said firmly. That's what separates us from Hayes and your father. That's what we're fighting for. A technician entered and whispered something to Joseph, whose face darkened. They found the boat. They know we're on the island. We have perhaps 3 hours before they breach our defenses. Diana stood. We need to evacuate the children. No, my mother countered. This facility was built to withstand military assault. We make our stand here. Against the entire US military. I asked incredulously. My mother's smile was eerily reminiscent of my own when closing a particularly challenging business deal. We have resources you can't imagine, Anthony. Including you. She turned to the others. Prepare the defense protocols. And ready the crucible. As the council members dispersed, I grabbed my mother's arm. What's the crucible? Her expression softened. The chamber where we remove the neural inhibitors. Where you can finally become who you were born to be. She touched my face, a gesture so achingly familiar it transported me back to childhood. But only if you choose it. And if I don't? Then you remain Anthony Stark, billionaire industrialist. And we fight without you. Her eyes held mine. But Isaiah will never fully connect with you. The bond you've begun to form will wither. And Maria will die, I finished for her. She nodded sadly. The choice must be yours. But choose quickly. Hayes won't wait, and neither will Maria's condition. As if summoned by her words, Natalie appeared in the doorway. Maria is awake. She's asking for you. I found Maria propped up in bed, looking marginally better though still alarmingly pale. Isaiah was asleep in a bassinet beside her, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. They told me, she said as I approached. About the treatment. About what's happening to me. I sat beside her, taking her hand. It felt small and fragile in mine. My mother says there are risks. Becoming like you and Isaiah, she said with a weak smile. Connected. Yes. Her eyes, those beautiful dark eyes that had regarded me with such suspicion just hours ago, now looked at me with something deeper. She also told me about your choice. That you would need to reverse whatever your father did to suppress your abilities. I don't know what I am without those suppressants, I admitted. What I might become. Maria's fingers tightened around mine. I've spent my life cleaning up after wealthy, powerful people. Invisible. Unimportant. But when you looked at me, really looked at me, I felt seen for the first time. Her voice strengthened. I'm not afraid of being connected to you. I'm afraid of losing Isaiah. Of leaving him alone in this world of people who want to use him. The emotion in her voice pierced something deep inside me. This woman, who had every reason to fear and hate me for what my father had done, was offering me her trust. Her connection. I can't promise you'll be safe, I said honestly. I don't even know who I really am. I do, she whispered, reaching up to touch my face in an echo of Isaiah's gesture. I've seen you, Anthony Stark. Not the billionaire. Not the genius. The man who held my son and promised to protect him. The man who looked at me and saw me. Something shifted between us, a current of feeling that transcended the scientific explanations for our connection. I leaned forward, drawn by an impulse I couldn't name, and pressed my lips to hers. The contact was electric, literally. A surge of energy passed between us, and suddenly I was experiencing her emotions alongside my own. Her fear, her hope, her growing feelings for me, all flooding into my consciousness. I pulled back, gasping. Did you feel that? Yes, she whispered, her eyes wide. Is that the neural connection? Natalie confirmed from the doorway. It's starting spontaneously. We're out of time. She approached, holding a syringe. The council has voted. With or without you, Anthony, we're proceeding with Maria's treatment. And with the defense of this facility. Maria's hand tightened in mine. Whatever you decide, I'm ready. I looked between them, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down on me. My entire life had been built on a lie. The empire I'd created, the walls I'd constructed around my heart, all designed to suppress the truth of what I was. Who I was meant to be. I thought of Isaiah, sleeping peacefully beside his mother. Of the connection I'd felt the moment I held him. Of the strange sense of belonging I'd experienced in this compound of people who shared my father's twisted legacy. What exactly will happen? I asked Natalie. When the inhibitors are removed, your neural pathways will fully activate, she explained. The connection abilities you've experienced in fragments will expand exponentially. You'll be able to link with any of us, share consciousness, memories, knowledge. And as Subject Zero, your presence will strengthen all our connections. Including with Isaiah and Maria. Especially with them. Your DNA created the foundation for Isaiah's abilities. And Maria's treatment will align her neural architecture with yours. My mother appeared behind Natalie. The crucible is ready. And Hayes forces have launched from the mainland. We need your decision, Anthony. I looked at Maria, at the trust in her eyes despite everything she'd learned about me, about what had been done to her child using my genetic material. I thought of the life I'd built, the power and wealth I'd accumulated trying to fill the emptiness inside me. None of it had ever made me feel the way I felt holding Isaiah. The way I felt kissing Maria. The way I felt in this room full of strangers who shared my father's manipulation. I'll do it, I said, the words feeling like both an ending and a beginning. I choose this. I choose them. My mother's relief was palpable. Thank you. As Natalie administered Maria's treatment, I leaned down to kiss her forehead. I'll see you on the other side, I promised. We'll be waiting, she whispered, her eyes already growing heavy as the medication took effect. I followed my mother through the compound to a chamber unlike anything I'd seen before, a spherical room with walls covered in a material that seemed to pulse with subtle light. The crucible neutralizes external neural signals while amplifying internal ones, she explained as technicians prepared equipment. It will allow us to safely remove the inhibitor compounds from your system. Will it hurt? I asked, surprising myself with the childish question. My mother's smile was sad. Yes. But you won't be alone. I'll be with you through the neural link. All of us will. As I lay on the table at the center of the chamber, electrodes attached to my temples and chest, I thought of all the moments that had led me here. The childhood illnesses I now understood were side effects of my father's experiments. The intuitive understanding of complex systems that had made me a business prodigy. The emptiness I'd tried to fill with wealth and power. Are you ready? My mother asked, standing beside me. I thought of Maria and Isaiah, the family I'd never known I wanted until they appeared in my life. Yes. The injection burned like fire in my veins. Then the real pain began, a sensation like my skull was being split open from within. I heard myself scream as decades of neural suppression reversed in minutes. And then, something incredible happened. My mind expanded. I felt my mother's presence first, a warm, familiar consciousness embracing my own. Then others joined, Natalie, Joseph, the council members, the technicians. Their thoughts, memories, and emotions flowing into me and mine into them. I saw through a dozen pairs of eyes simultaneously. Felt the approach of Hayes forces through our surveillance systems. Experienced the fear and determination of everyone in the compound. And beneath it all, like a beacon calling me home, I felt two more presences, Maria, her consciousness rising through layers of sedation to reach for mine, and Isaiah, his infant mind already more powerful than any of us had imagined. The pain receded, replaced by a sense of wholeness I'd never known was possible. I wasn't just Anthony Stark anymore. I was part of something larger, a collective consciousness that still preserved individual identity. I was finally, truly awake. As the procedure ended, I sat up, experiencing the world through new senses. The neural connections hummed around me like visible threads of light, connecting me to every subject in the compound. It worked, my mother said, though she didn't need to speak aloud. I could feel her joy and pride radiating through our connection. Better than we hoped, Joseph agreed, entering the chamber. Your neural integration is complete. And just in time. Through our shared consciousness, I saw what he meant. Hayes' forces had reached the island's perimeter. The assault was beginning. I stood, stronger than I'd ever felt, my mind processing information at an extraordinary rate. Through the network, I accessed security systems, defense protocols, tactical analyses, all simultaneously. They can't have Isaiah, I said, my voice unfamiliar to my own ears. Or any of the children. They won't, my mother promised. Not now that we have you. As alarms began to sound throughout the compound, I reached out through the neural network to touch Maria's mind. She was awake now, her consciousness tentatively exploring our connection. I'm here, I sent to her. I'm with you. With both of you. Her response flowed back to me, not in words, but in emotions, relief, wonder, and something deeper that made my heart race. We're under attack, I explained. But I won't let them take you or Isaiah. Her determination matched my own, her mind already adjusting to our connection with remarkable speed. Then let's fight. Through our shared consciousness, I felt her rise from the medical bed, felt her lift Isaiah into her arms. Felt her begin to understand what we had become together. Not subjects in an experiment. Not victims of my father's ambition. But a family. Connected in ways no one, not even Howard Stark, could have predicted. And as Hayes' forces breached the outer defenses, I made a promise to them both through our bond, whatever comes next, we face it together. All of us. Oh my goodness. What an incredible transformation. Our billionaire has finally embraced his true nature and connected with Maria and little Isaiah in ways none of us could have imagined. But with Hayes and his military forces closing in, will their newfound abilities be enough to save them and the other subjects? I'm literally on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens next. If you're loving this emotional journey as much as I am, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me what you think their special connection will allow them to do. The most intense part of their story is just about to unfold. The attack came in waves. First, the EMP that should have disabled our systems but didn't, thanks to my mother's foresight in creating quantum-shielded technology. Then the tactical teams, their faces hidden behind masks as they breached the compound's outer defenses. Through our neural network, I coordinated our response. The subjects moved as one mind with many bodies, each person knowing exactly what the others needed. It should have been enough. It wasn't. They've adapted, Joseph's voice cut through the chaos as he appeared beside me in the command center. Blood streaked his face from a head wound. Hayes is using sound-based weapons to disrupt our neural signals. I felt it the moment the devices activated, a high-pitched frequency that didn't affect normal hearing but sent spikes of agony through our connected minds. Around me, people dropped to their knees, clutching their heads. Through the network, I felt Maria's pain as she tried to shield Isaiah from the assault. Stay with me, I sent to her, fighting through the disruption. Focus on my signal. I can't, her response came, fragmented and weak. It hurts Isaiah too much. The connection between us flickered like a failing light. For the first time since my awakening in the crucible, I felt the cold edge of fear. We need to evacuate, my mother ordered, her face pale with strain. The backup facility in. An explosion rocked the east wing, cutting her off. Through our fractured network, I felt the moment 3 of our people died, their consciousness simply winking out of existence. They've breached the children's ward, Natalie reported, blood trickling from her ears. We're losing ground. I made a decision then, one I knew would haunt me. Get everyone to the escape tunnels. I'll create a diversion. Anthony, no, my mother protested. If Hayes captures you. He won't, I assured her, though I wasn't certain. I can hold them off long enough for you to get the children out. Including Isaiah. No, Maria's voice cut through the chaos in my mind. We stay together. You have to protect our son, I replied, surprising myself with the words. When had I started thinking of Isaiah as mine? Through our connection, I felt her conflict, her desire to stay with me warring with her instinct to protect Isaiah. Promise you'll find us, she finally responded. With everything I am. The plan formed quickly. While I engaged Hayes' forces at the main entrance, the others would escape through underground tunnels to the far side of the island, where emergency vessels waited. Simple. Desperate. Our only chance. I moved through the compound toward the main entrance, channeling every combat technique shared through the neural network. Through fractured connections, I monitored the evacuation, saw my mother leading the children through the tunnels, felt Maria's determination as she carried Isaiah to safety. The enemy soldiers never saw me coming. I disabled the first two before they could react, using their own weapons against the next wave. For precious minutes, I became what my father had always intended, the perfect weapon, augmented by the collective skills of every subject in the network. But they kept coming. And the neural disruptors kept getting stronger. I was fighting 6 soldiers when Hayes himself walked through the entrance, holding a device that sent crippling pain through my skull. Subject 0, he said, as if greeting an old friend. How remarkable to see you at your full potential after all these years. I lunged for him, but my body betrayed me as the disruptor's frequency intensified. I collapsed, blood pouring from my nose and ears. Your father would be proud, Hayes continued, circling me. Though disappointed by your choice of allegiance. My father was a monster, I growled through clenched teeth. Just like you. Hayes smiled thinly. He was a visionary who understood sacrifice. As do I. He nodded to his men. Secure him. And find the child. Subject 12 is the key to everything. Through the fractured network, I felt a spike of terror that wasn't my own. Maria. They'd found her. Run. I projected with all my remaining strength. Don't let them take Isaiah. Her panic flooded my consciousness, along with a flood of images, soldiers cutting them off from the escape route, Isaiah crying in her arms, my mother falling as she tried to protect them. Then, something unexpected. Isaiah's infant consciousness expanded, touching all our minds at once. Not with fear, but with determination. Power rolled from him in waves, his untrained abilities manifesting in a burst of pure instinct. The soldiers surrounding Maria dropped to their knees, their minds temporarily overwhelmed by Isaiah's psychic assault. In that moment of chaos, I made my move. Ignoring the agony from Hayes' device, I launched myself at him, knocking the disruptor from his hand. We crashed to the floor, my hands finding his throat. It's over, Hayes, I snarled. Your project dies today. His eyes bulged, but his expression remained triumphant. You still don't understand, he choked out. Why do you think we let your mother escape all those years ago? Why we allowed this resistance to grow? He laughed hoarsely. We needed you to activate. To complete the final stage. Horror washed over me as I felt something new in the neural network, something foreign infiltrating our connections. The realization came too late. The disruptor wasn't to hurt you, Hayes wheezed as my grip loosened. It contained the activation code. The backdoor your father built into all of you. Pain exploded behind my eyes as something else took control of my consciousness. My body no longer obeyed me. The neural network that had felt like freedom now became my prison. Through fading awareness, I felt Maria's terror as she sensed the change in me. Felt Isaiah's confusion as his father's mind became something other. Anthony! My mother's voice, both aloud and in my mind. Fight it! But I couldn't. Whatever Howard had planted in my neural architecture was too deeply embedded. I was being overwritten, reprogrammed, turned into the very weapon I had feared becoming. As darkness claimed me, one thought remained: I had failed them. Failed Maria. Failed Isaiah. Failed the family I had only just discovered. And as Hayes' men dragged my unresisting body toward their waiting helicopter, I felt the neural connection to Maria and Isaiah grow fainter with each passing moment. Until there was nothing but silence in my mind. Consciousness returned in fragments. White walls. The scent of antiseptic. Faces in lab coats observing me through glass. My body felt foreign, my thoughts sluggish. Only one thing remained clear: the ghostly echo where the neural connection to Maria and Isaiah had been. The integration is complete, Hayes announced to someone outside my field of vision. Subject Zero's neural architecture has accepted the override protocol. His hours. I wanted to fight, to rage against the control, but my body responded only to their commands. When they ordered me to stand, I stood. When they instructed me to demonstrate my abilities, I complied, reaching out with my mind to connect with other subjects they'd captured. But beneath the programming, something remained. A spark of self. Of defiance. Of love. Bring in Subject 12, Hayes ordered. It's time for the final phase. Horror cut through my fog as guards entered carrying Isaiah. My son. They'd found him. Captured him. Where is his mother? I managed to ask, my voice sounding wrong to my own ears. Hayes smiled coldly. Subject 15 was damaged during acquisition. She's being stabilized for study. Damaged. The word ignited something primal within me. Maria, hurt. In danger. The spark of resistance flared brighter. You have a choice, Stark, Hayes continued, misinterpreting my silence for compliance. Cooperate, and they live. Resist, and we have no further use for them. They placed Isaiah in a specialized containment crib, electrodes attached to his tiny head. His eyes found mine immediately, those knowing eyes too wise for an infant, and I felt the faintest whisper of connection. Father. Not a word. A feeling. A recognition that transcended language. And with it came something unexpected, a thread of Maria's consciousness, tenuous but present, linked through Isaiah. We're here, her mental voice whispered. Fighting. That's when I understood. Hayes had activated my father's programming, but he couldn't sever the connection that had formed between the three of us. It ran too deep, anchored in something beyond science, something like soul. Isaiah's tiny hand reached toward me from the crib, his face scrunched in concentration. And suddenly, I saw what he was showing me: Maria, blooded but conscious, working with my mother to breach the security systems from within the facility. Remarkable cognitive development, a scientist murmured, misinterpreting Isaiah's gesture as simple recognition. The neural connection between Subject 0 and 12 is stronger than predicted. They don't know, Maria's thoughts reach me. They can see the connection but not what passes through it. We have a plan. Your mother is rerouting the neural disruptors. I kept my expression blank as hope surged within me. I needed to stall. To keep Hayes focused on me while they worked. What's the purpose of all this, Hayes? I asked, intentionally slurring my words to maintain the illusion of my compromised state. What could possibly be worth this suffering? Hayes approached, pride evident in his bearing. Networked consciousness. Imagine soldiers sharing a hive mind, operating with perfect coordination. Imagine intelligence analysts processing information collectively at exponential speeds. His eyes gleamed. And you, Stark, are the central processor, the key that makes it all possible. Through our hidden connection, I felt the moment Maria reached the control system. Felt her connecting the modified disruptor my mother had prepared. Now! She sent. The facility lights flickered as the modified frequency blasted through the building's speaker system. To Hayes and the scientists, it sounded like mere static. But to my programmed neural pathways, it was liberation. I fell to my knees, blood streaming from my nose as Howard's programming collapsed. Through the pain, I reached out with my mind, reconnecting to the network of subjects throughout the facility. Their consciousnesses flooded into mine, dozens of them, each adding their strength to my own. Hayes realized too late what was happening. "Contain him," he shouted as I rose to my feet, my mind and body my own again. The guards never stood a chance. With the collective combat knowledge of the network flowing through me, I disabled them in seconds. Scientists scattered as alarms blared throughout the facility. I moved to Isaiah, gently removing the electrodes from his head. "I've got you," I whispered, cradling him against my chest. "I'm here now." His small hand touched my face, and our connection blazed fully open once more. Through it, I could sense exactly where Maria was, 3 levels down, fighting her way toward us alongside my mother and Joseph. Hayes backed toward the exit, fumbling for a weapon. "This changes nothing, Stark. We have facilities worldwide. Other subjects. Your father's legacy will." "My father's legacy ends today," I interrupted, my voice steady as I advanced on him. "And so does yours." Before he could respond, the facility rocked with an explosion. Through the network, I felt Natalie's satisfaction. She detonated the charges on the lower levels, creating the diversion they needed. Hayes fled through the exit, but I didn't pursue him. Finding Maria mattered more than revenge. With Isaiah secure in my arms, I moved through the chaos of the facility, guided by our connection. When I finally saw her, bloodied, exhausted, but gloriously alive, something broke and reformed inside me. "Anthony," she whispered, her hand reaching for mine as Joseph supported her weight. The moment our fingers touched, our connection surged to full strength, Isaiah at its center. The 3 of us linked in perfect harmony, our consciousness briefly merging into something greater than ourselves. "The facility is compromised," my mother reported, her tactical mind focused despite the emotion in her eyes at seeing us reunited. "Hayes is evacuating his key personnel." "Let him run," I said, supporting Maria with my free arm. "We have what matters." Through the neural network, I coordinated our escape, subjects working in perfect unison to secure an exit route. As we emerged into daylight, I saw the helicopters my mother had summoned approaching over the water. "What now?" Maria asked as medics tended to her wounds. "They'll never stop hunting us." I looked down at Isaiah, then at her, feeling the strength of our connection, a bond that transcended the science that created it. "Now we stop running," I said. "And start fighting back." My mother approached, her expression resolute. "The network is stronger than ever. With you fully activated, we can coordinate globally. Expose Hayes. Dismantle the program permanently. And protect the children," Maria added, her determination flowing through our bond. Isaiah cooed softly, his consciousness brushing against ours with surprising clarity. Not just recognizing us, but understanding. Choosing us. As the helicopters landed and our people began boarding, I held Maria and Isaiah close, our minds and hearts intertwined. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was and where I belonged. Not Anthony Stark, billionaire. Not Subject Zero, experiment. But a father. A partner. A protector. And as we lifted off, leaving Hayes' shattered facility behind, I made a silent vow through our shared consciousness, together we will build something new. Something better. A family unlike any the world has seen before. 6 months passed in a blur of preparation. Our refuge, a remote compound in northern Finland, became home to 37 subjects and their families. Through our neural network, we constructed a new kind of community, our shared consciousness allowing us to work with unprecedented coordination. Isaiah grew stronger daily. At 17 months, his ability surpassed anything my mother had predicted. He didn't just connect with us, he amplified our network, his infant mind somehow functioning as a signal booster for our shared consciousness. Maria flourished as well. Her neural integration had stabilized, her natural resilience making her adaptation smoother than most. And what had begun between us as a connection of necessity had blossomed into something I'd never experienced before: complete understanding. Complete acceptance. Love without barriers. But our peace couldn't last. Hayes had gone quiet, but through operatives placed in strategic positions, we detected movement. Military units mobilizing. Research facilities activating. A global net closing around us. They found us, my mother announced during our council meeting. Multiple strike teams converging. Less than 24 hours until they reach our position. Then we implement endgame, I replied, the decision already made collectively through our network. Maria's hand found mine under the table. Are you sure? Her thoughts asked. It's the only way to end this permanently, I responded silently. My mother nodded, understanding passing through our connection. I'll prepare the broadcast systems. We'd spent months gathering evidence, research files, video testimony, medical records. Proof of decades of illegal human experimentation sanctioned at the highest levels of government. The kind of revelation that would bring down administrations. But evidence alone wasn't enough. We needed to demonstrate what had been done to us in a way the world couldn't ignore or deny. We needed to reveal ourselves. As night fell, Maria found me on the observation deck, Isaiah sleeping peacefully in my arms. Having second thoughts, she asked aloud, though she could have simply checked through our connection. About facing Hayes? No. I gazed down at our son. About exposing Isaiah to the world? Absolutely. He won't be alone, she reminded me, her hand resting on my arm. None of us will be again. Her touch sent warmth through our bond, confidence, determination, and something deeper that still amazed me daily. This woman who had started as a stranger now knew me more completely than anyone ever had. Hayes arrives at dawn, I said. Once we've neutralized his forces, we broadcast everything. She nodded, her mind briefly touching mine with both love and resolve. Then we should rest while we can. But rest didn't come. Instead, I held Maria close in the darkness, our consciousness gently merged, sharing memories and hopes without words. Isaiah's mind occasionally brushed against ours from his crib, checking in, my mother called it. Making sure his parents were there. Dawn broke with the distant sound of helicopters. They're here, Joseph's voice reached through the network. We moved as one mind with many bodies. Subjects took defensive positions while non-neural family members retreated to the shelter beneath the compound. Maria insisted on staying with me, Isaiah secured in a carrier against her chest. He strengthens our connection, she explained when my mother questioned the decision. We need him. The first wave hit our northern perimeter, tactical teams with neural disruptors. But we were ready. The technology that had once crippled us now triggered our countermeasures, manufactured from my mother's redesigned prototypes. Through our network, I felt every engagement simultaneously, each victory, each setback. In the command center, my consciousness expanded beyond the facility, coordinating our defense with perfect precision. Sir, one of our operators called, aircraft approaching. Military transport. On the monitors, I watched the massive plane descend toward our landing strip. We'd left it undefended intentionally. Let them think they had a foothold. He's here, I said, feeling Maria's hand slip into mine. Hayes is making his move personally. The transport landed, disgorging vehicles and soldiers. At their center walked Hayes, flanked by what our intelligence had identified as his elite subjects, 6 neurally enhanced soldiers with abilities similar to our own but trained from childhood as weapons. Let him approach, I instructed through the network. Spring the trap only when I give the signal. Maria's grip tightened. Be careful, she sent privately. Isaiah needs his father. I touched our son's head gently, feeling his consciousness respond to mine with innocent joy. I'm not going anywhere. Hayes' convoy approached the main entrance, falling perfectly into our planned containment zone. Through surveillance, I watched him exit his vehicle, straightening his uniform with the confidence of a man who believed victory was assured. "It's time," I told my mother. "Begin the broadcast." Around the world, our operatives simultaneously activated the transmission protocols we'd established. Every digital screen, from Times Square to personal devices, would show what happened here today. I met Hayes at the entrance, Maria and Isaiah slightly behind me, protected by Joseph and Natalie. Subject 0, Hayes greeted me, his smile cold. "I see you've brought the whole family. How convenient." "It's over, Hayes," I replied. "The world is watching now. Everything, the experiments, the kidnappings, the violations of every ethical standard, all of it goes public today." His smile didn't falter. "You think exposure threatens me? The public will see exactly what I want them to see, dangerous individuals with unnatural abilities who need to be controlled." He gestured to his enhanced soldiers. "My subjects remain loyal. Yours are compromised by emotion." "That's where you're wrong," Maria stepped forward, Isaiah watching Hayes with those unnervingly intelligent eyes. "Emotion doesn't compromise the connection. It strengthens it." On cue, Isaiah reached out with his consciousness, and through him, our entire network synchronized to a degree we'd never achieved before. 42 minds moving in perfect harmony, yet each maintaining their individuality. Not the hive mind Hayes had envisioned, but something far more powerful, a collective of willing participants, each adding their strength by choice. Hayes sensed the shift, his expression faltering as his enhanced soldiers stiffened, their own neural connections suddenly flooded with our combined consciousness. "What are you doing?" he demanded as his soldiers lowered their weapons, confusion evident on their faces. "Showing them the truth," I answered. "Every memory, every experiment, every child taken from their family, they're experiencing it all through our connection." Hayes backed away, reaching for his sidearm. "Kill them," he ordered his soldiers. "That's a direct command." But his elite force remained motionless, tears streaming down several faces as they processed decades of suppressed memories and emotions. "They were children," I continued, advancing on Hayes. "Like Isaiah. Like I was. You didn't create soldiers, you created victims. And now they know it." Hayes fired his weapon in desperation. The bullet never reached me. One of his own soldiers intercepted it, her enhanced reflexes moving her body before her conscious mind could process the decision. "Stand down, General," she said, her voice shaking with emotion she'd never been allowed to express. "It's finished." Around the world, our broadcast showed exactly what we'd promised, the evidence, the testimonials, and now, the defection of Hayes' own forces. The neural network that he had hoped would create the perfect weapons had instead created the perfect witnesses. Hayes lunged for Isaiah in a final desperate move, whether to use him as a hostage or harm him, I'll never know. His fingers had barely grazed the carrier when Maria and I acted as one, our combined abilities freezing him in place, his mind temporarily overwhelmed by our united consciousness. "You lose," I told him softly as security forces, our own and several who had defected from his command, surrounded him. "The program is exposed. Your subjects are free. And my son will never know the life you planned for him." As they led Hayes away, Maria pressed against my side, Isaiah reaching up to touch both our faces, connecting us in that special way that transcended even our neural bond. Through our link, I felt his simple, profound emotions, safety, love, belonging. "It's really over," Maria whispered, watching the soldiers who had once hunted us now securing the man who had commanded them. "This part is," I agreed, gathering my family close as media helicopters appeared on the horizon, drawn by our broadcast. "Now comes the harder part." "What's that?" she asked, though she could feel my thoughts. I smiled, kissing her forehead gently. "Learning to live in the light." As the world converged on our location and our network hummed with victorious relief, I held the two people who had changed everything for me. The cleaning lady who had become my partner in every sense. The baby who had recognized something in me worth clinging to. My family. My freedom. My future. 2 years later, I stood on the balcony of our mountainside home, watching Isaiah chase butterflies through the meadow below. At 3.5, he was extraordinarily coordinated for his age, one of many gifts from his unique neural development. Maria sat nearby, her sketch pad balanced on her knee, charcoal smudged on her fingers as she captured our son's joy on paper. "He's trying to connect with them," she observed, smiling as Isaiah's face scrunched in concentration when a monarch butterfly landed on a nearby flower. "He still doesn't understand why some creatures don't respond to his thoughts." I leaned against the railing, savoring the domestic tranquility we'd fought so hard to achieve. "My mother says his abilities are still evolving. Yesterday he synchronized with Natalie's daughter from 3 miles away." Maria set aside her sketch and joined me, her arm slipping around my waist with easy familiarity. Through our connection, I felt her contentment mingled with the ever-present vigilance that had become second nature to us all. "The Senate committee makes their final decision tomorrow," she reminded me, though I hardly needed it. The fate of every subject, including Isaiah, hung on their ruling. After Hayes' arrest and the global exposure of Project Nightingale, the world had reacted with predictable fear and fascination. Protests demanded our containment, human rights organizations fought for our protection. For months, we lived in limbo as governments debated what to do with 42 adults and 17 children who could share consciousness across continents. My mother had been our fiercest advocate, emerging from decades of hiding to testify before Congress, the UN, and countless ethics committees. The woman who had once been declared mentally ill for opposing my father's research now commanded international respect as the world's foremost expert on neural integration. "Whatever they decide," I assured Maria, "we're prepared." Through our bond, I let her feel my certainty, my resolve. After defeating Hayes, no bureaucratic decision could truly threaten us. She smiled, catching the thought. "Your humility remains your most charming quality." Along with my billions, I teased back. While most of my fortune had been frozen during the investigations, enough had been released to establish the Stark Foundation for Neural Research and Support, a legitimate organization dedicated to helping subjects adapt to normal life while advancing ethical research into our condition. Isaiah's laughter bubbled up from the meadow as Joseph's son joined him in butterfly pursuit. The two boys, genetically unrelated but neurally synchronized, had become inseparable, their connection deeper than ordinary friendship could achieve. "They're the first of a new generation," Maria mused, watching them. "Born into connection rather than forced into it." I nodded, my throat tightening unexpectedly. They'll never know what it was like to be alone inside their own minds. Maria's hand found mine, her thoughts gently brushing against the memory of my isolated childhood, the loneliness I'd never been able to name until I experienced its absence. "None of us are alone anymore," she reminded me. The distant sound of a helicopter broke our reverie. Not unusual, media still occasionally circled our community, hoping for glimpses of the telepaths who had captivated public imagination. But this one flew directly toward our landing pad with purpose. "Its mother," I sent through the network. With news. Within minutes, Elizabeth Stark emerged from the aircraft, her silver hair whipping in the rotor wash. Despite her 70 years, she moved with the energy of someone decades younger, her mind as sharp as ever when it touched ours in greeting. Isaiah abandoned his butterflies instantly, racing toward his grandmother with the uncanny awareness that always preceded her arrivals. "Grammy," he shouted, launching himself into her arms. She caught him with practiced ease, their foreheads touching briefly in the gesture that had become customary among us, facilitating clearer neural connection. "Hello, my brilliant boy," she greeted him, then looked up at Maria and me with an expression that told us everything before she spoke. "The Protection Act passed," she announced as we approached. "Full citizenship rights for all subjects. Legal recognition of neural family bonds. And most importantly," she set Isaiah down, kneeling to his level, "guaranteed autonomy for all children in the program. No mandatory government monitoring." Relief flooded through our shared consciousness, rippling outward as others in our community received the news through the network. After 2 years of fighting, we were finally, legally, free. "And Hayes?" I asked, the one loose end that still troubled my sleep. My mother's satisfaction radiated through our connection. Life imprisonment. The military tribunal was unanimous. Maria swept Isaiah into her arms, her joy so intense it brought tears to my eyes. "It's really over," she whispered. "Not over," I corrected gently. "Just beginning." That evening, our community gathered in the central courtyard of the compound. 42 adults and 17 children, once subjects, now simply people with an extraordinary connection. Some, like Natalie, had reunited with children taken from them. Others, like Joseph, had formed new families with fellow subjects who understood their unique experiences. And us, Maria, Isaiah, and I, the unexpected catalyst that had brought everything to light. As twilight deepened, Isaiah moved among the gathered families, his developing abilities allowing him to strengthen the neural connections between us all. Though only a child, he had become something of a central node in our network, not the weapon Hayes had envisioned, but a natural bridge between minds. "He gets that from you," Maria observed as we watched him work his way through the crowd, touching hands and foreheads with innocent purpose. "The networking skills, maybe," I conceded. "But that heart? That's all you." She leaned against me, our connection humming with contentment. Through it, I felt something new, a question forming in her mind but not yet shared. "What is it?" I prompted. Instead of answering through our bond, she spoke aloud. "Isaiah asked me something this morning. About having a brother or sister." My heart skipped. "Oh." "He says he can feel an empty space in our connection. A place for someone else." Her dark eyes met mine, uncertain despite the depth of our neural bond. Some things, we'd discovered, needed to be said aloud. "What do you think?" 2 years ago, I had been a solitary billionaire, walled off from emotional connection, focused only on expanding my empire. Now I stood surrounded by a community of people linked by shared consciousness, with a woman who had broken through every defense I'd constructed. "I think," I said carefully, "that Isaiah has good instincts." Her smile was luminous. "He gets that from both of us." Later, as darkness fell completely and stars emerged above our mountain refuge, I found myself alone with Isaiah on the observation deck. His small hand rested in mine, his consciousness gently brushing against my own, not with words or even coherent thoughts, but with emotions. Trust. Safety. Love. "Daddy," he said, his vocabulary expanding daily though he still preferred neural communication, "are we special?" I considered how to answer. "We're different," I said finally. "Our minds work in ways most people's don't." He nodded seriously. "But is different good?" The question struck me deeply, the essential uncertainty that had haunted all of us since discovering what had been done to make us what we are. "Different isn't good or bad by itself," I explained, kneeling to his level. "What matters is what we choose to do with our differences." He considered this with the preternatural thoughtfulness that sometimes made me forget he was only 3. "Like how we help people feel not alone." "Exactly like that." His small fingers touched my temple in the gesture he'd used since infancy, and I felt his consciousness merge more fully with mine, sharing not just emotion but a simple, profound understanding that belied his years. "I'm glad we're different together," he said. Emotion welled up in me, gratitude for this child who had changed everything, for Maria who had brought him into my life, for the unlikely family we'd created from the ashes of my father's cruel ambition. "So am I, little one," I whispered. "So am I." Maria found us there sometime later, her mind reaching for hours before she physically appeared. Our connection had deepened over time, evolving beyond the mechanical neural link into something science couldn't fully explain, a bond that transcended the physical modifications that had created it. "Isaiah needs sleep," she said softly. "Even telepathic 3-year-olds have bedtimes." Our son protested weakly, but his drooping eyelids betrayed his exhaustion. I scooped him up, his small body going limp with immediate trust as his consciousness gently disengaged from mine. Together, Maria and I tucked him into bed, his room filled with both normal toys and specialized equipment my mother had designed to help him develop his abilities safely. As his eyes closed, his mind reached for ours one last time, a gentle goodnight that needed no words. In our bedroom, Maria and I stood by the window overlooking the sleeping community below, a place of healing, of connection, of second chances. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Giving up your old life? Your company? Your privacy?" I considered the question seriously, though she could feel my answer through our bond before I spoke. I spent 15 years building walls around myself, convinced that power and wealth were adequate substitutes for connection. I turned to face her, taking both her hands in mine. I would trade it all again in a heartbeat. Her smile was soft in the moonlight. The cleaning lady and the billionaire. Who would have thought? The cleaning lady and the billionaire's son, I corrected, thinking of how Isaiah had recognized something in me that first day, some essential compatibility that transcended our unusual biology. "We owe him everything." She nodded, then rose on tiptoes to kiss me, a physical connection that enhanced rather than replaced our neural bond. Through it, I felt her complete acceptance, her understanding of parts of me I'd never shared with anyone else, her love that had somehow flourished despite the bizarre circumstances that had brought us together. When we separated, I kept her close, foreheads touching in the gesture that had become second nature. "My father wanted to create the perfect human," I murmured. What he never understood was that perfection isn't found in genetic modifications or neural enhancements. "Where is it found?" she asked, though she already knew my answer. "In connection," I replied simply. "In family. In love." Through our bond, I felt her agreement, and beyond her, the gentle pulse of our entire community, minds linked in sleep yet never truly alone. And at the center of it all, Isaiah's consciousness, peaceful in dreams yet still somehow anchoring us all. We had been made different against our will. But what we built with that difference, that had been our choice entirely. And as I held the woman I loved, our son sleeping peacefully down the hall, I knew we had chosen well. And there we have it, my wonderful viewers. The cleaning lady, the billionaire, and the special baby who brought them together have finally found their happy ending. From strangers to family, from experiments to pioneers of a new kind of human connection, their journey reminds us that love can flourish in the most unexpected circumstances. What did you think of their story? Could you have imagined when we started that it would end with such a beautiful family? Drop a comment below with your favorite moment from this incredible journey, and if you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? More emotional stories are coming your way soon. Until next time, thank you for joining me on this extraordinary adventure.